Welcome back in praise and glory and honor to Father Yahweh, who is Ahaya, Ashar, Ahaya, and to the appointed high priest, Messiah Yahweh Shah, who is the Savior through the Father Yah. Glory and honor to their name. Welcome back again. We're just now going to be starting a new Bible study. Now, we have done a Daniel study many, many times, but it's like when we read the Bible. Every time we read the Bible, we learn more. No matter how many times you read it. Like I said, I've just finished the 20th time that I've read it. The last 19 years in a row, I've read it, and every single time that I read it, I learn so much more than what I saw before. So the book of Daniel is an example of that, because we've done many studies over the years on the book of Daniel, but we're going to now embark on a newest study, which will include information and teachings that we have recently learned in our last reading of the Bible. Okay. And so the Bible, in talking about Daniel, we must remember that Daniel is a Hebrew Israelite of the tribe of Judah, and that he's a captive in exile in the kingdom of Babylon. Okay, Daniel is a Hebrew Israelite of the tribe of Judah, and he's in exile in the kingdom of Babylon. Now, what does Daniel and us have in common? Before we even open the book, what does Daniel and us have in common? Daniel is a Hebrew Israelite of the tribe of Judah, and he is in exile in Babylon. That's right. We are his Hebrew Israelites of Israel, of the children of Israel, and we are exiles and captives in modern Babylon. The Babylon that Daniel lived in was founded by the Hamites and Nimrod, Cush's son. This Babylon that we live in is controlled by the children of Japhet, and founded, instead of it being founded in Shinar, which was the capital of Babylon, our system that we are in, not our system, but the system we are exiles in, is capital in Rome and has a second base in Washington, D.C. This is also not unusual. Before the fall of the Roman Empire and the beginning of the so-called Holy Roman Empire, they had two capitals. They had one in Rome, and they had one that's now modern-day Turkey and Istanbul. They had two. They had one in Rome, and they had one that was the image of Rome, which was called Constantinople. That name was later changed to Istanbul. Constantinople fell to the Ottomans and became Istanbul, but they had two capitals. Well, brethren, here we are again. We have the capital of Rome, which controls the second capital of Washington, D.C. And we are in a system in which we are all captives to that system. Now, we're not in chains, most of us, though some of us still are in chains. They still have chained slaves in this system. But many of us have been set free of the chains, and yet we're still in the system. Daniel was brought to Babylon in chains. Then they were set free of the chains, and they were still in the system. So there's a lot of similarities between the exile Hebrews today and the exile Hebrews then. Now, an important difference is that Daniel and all of the exiles in Babylon at that time knew their real names. In the beginning, they had all seen Solomon's temple before it fell. They were exiles from Jerusalem recently, so they knew their culture, their history, their family history. They knew all of that. The Babylonians gave them names, but they didn't forget their real names. We also have been given names of Babylon, but we have to awaken. That's right, we have to awaken to who we are, and the Most High will give us new names once he delivers us from Babylon. Okay? So with that in mind, we go to Daniel. Let's go to Daniel, and let's start off in Daniel. And Daniel is right after another interesting book called Ezekiel. And we may, and we studied Ezekiel, I think it was last year. We may end up studying Ezekiel again, but Ezekiel and Daniel and Jeremiah are all contemporaries. Okay? Ezekiel and Daniel and Jeremiah are all contemporaries. Daniel mentions Jeremiah in Daniel chapter 9. Ezekiel mentions that they're exiles and captives in the book of Ezekiel. As a matter of fact, before we go to Daniel, let's take a look at that. This is Ezekiel chapter 20. Ezekiel chapter 20. In Ezekiel chapter 20, beginning at verse 1, I'm going to read from verse 1 down to verse 3. To verse 4. Ezekiel chapter 20 from verse 1 to verse 4. And it came to pass in the 7th year, in the 5th month, the 10th day of the month, that certain of the elders of Israel came to inquire of Yahweh and sat before me. Then came the word of Yahweh unto me, saying, Son of man, speak unto the elders of Israel, and say unto them, Thus saith the Most High Yahweh, are ye come to inquire of me? As I live, saith the Most High Yahweh, I will not be inquired of by you. Wilt thou judge them, son of man? Wilt thou judge them, cause them to know the abominations of their fathers? So they were in exile. Their city was destroyed. Their temple was destroyed. And they were inquiring of the Most High as if they didn't understand why. Isn't that something? So they knew their real names. They knew where they came from. And they were inquiring of the Most High. Like, why is this happening to us? The same thing happened in Jeremiah. They asked Jeremiah, they weren't listening to him all the time. They came and said, okay, please inquire of the Father for us. And whatever he tells you, we're going to do. And when he told them to stay where they were, not to go to Egypt, they said, no, he didn't send you. We're going to go to Egypt, and we're going to still burn incense to the Queen of Heaven. That's called stiff-necked, right? Hard-headed and willful ignorance. Again, the Messiah said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. And they say, we are Abraham's children, and we've never been in bondage to any man. Willful ignorance. At the moment they're saying that, there are Roman soldiers marching up and down the streets of Jerusalem. And they're saying, we've never been in bondage to any man. How you mean we're going to be made free? So even though they were exiles in Babylon, even though their city was destroyed, Their temple was destroyed. They were brought into Babylon. And they still would act like they didn't know why. They wouldn't listen to his prophets, right? And they were in willful ignorance. Now, this is where the difference between them and us come in. We have been spanked. They were the beginning of the spanking. We are the end of the spanking, right? They were the beginning of the spanking. We're the end of the spanking. So we're looking back and we're saying, oh man, we know where that comes from, right? So, well, what does that mean to you and me? Well, of course, now we do not want to be willfully ignorant. We do not want to be stiff-necked. We want to listen to Yah's prophets. We do not want to act like we don't know why we're here. We know why we're here. Because Yah's prophets told us why we're here. Okay, we know why we're captives. And again, it's very simple. Like I love the fact that we don't have to guess. We don't have to theorize, hypothesize about any of this situation. All we have to do, look at your driver's license. You said, what? Look at the driver's license? Yeah, look at your driver's license and your birth certificate. Is that your real name? Where'd you get that name from? Where did it come from? Are you a Rodriguez or Martinez? Are you a Smith? Did you get that from the Hebrews? Where'd you get that name from? You understand? So you got a name that's really not your name. And yet, if you try to use another name with the U.S. government, you're going to be in trouble. You won't be able to open a bank account. You won't be able to go anywhere because you say, well, my name, that's my name, my Hebrew name. They're not going to hear that. This is on your birth certificate and your driver's license. All you got to do is see that. Then what else you got to do? Look in your family history. Just look in your family history. Is there some evidence that maybe you have generational curse in your family? Is there any evidence of that? How do you know? You got brethren that spent a lot of time in jail in your family, cousins? Huh? All you gotta do is look in your family. You got cousins that spent a lot of time in prison. Anybody was in the game? Huh? My father, my dad. What was that you were drinking? I said, I was drinking some wine. He said, be careful. He said, you come from a long line of alcoholics. And he's right. I have uncles that I more than one that I can't even remember them ever being sober. I had one uncle that was sober. When I saw him sober is when he was dying of AIDS. And that's the first time I saw him speak with a sober voice. He wasn't slurring, and I was surprised. Uncle Leo, shoot, he's sober. Long line. Okay, long line. So, brother, that's what I'm saying. All we gotta do is look at our family history, look at our driver's license, our birth certificate, and you can know, who you are. Okay, you can know. It doesn't even have to. See how easy that is, though? That's not hard, is it? I mean, right? It's not. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, no pun intended, to see that your name is not really like Green or Walker. You got that from Europeans. Your name is not McDougal. Yeah, it is. It's on my driver's license. Yeah, but where'd you get that name from? Does that go back in history? And a lot of people can trace their European roots. Proud of it. But you got another side that's you. Where's that? Where's that come from? What was your name then? What language did you speak then? Malcolm X would say. What was yours? How'd you lose it? How'd you lose it? How'd you lose your name? How'd you lose your language? How'd you lose your religion? How did all that happen? Well, the Bible tells us. The Bible tells us how it all happened. And so as we're now reading, because, and seriously, we are the last generation of exiles. And man, think about that. Understanding the prophecies that we have studied, we understand that we are the last generation of exiles. We're the last generation of exiles in Babylon. Daniel understood at Daniel chapter 9, we'll get there, where he understood that it was the end of their exile in Babylon at the end of the 70 years. He understood by Jeremiah's prophecy. And so he was being shown past that, but he understood based on Jeremiah's prophecy that the end of the 70 years had come, right? So now us being in the system of Babylon from the same prophets, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, John, from the same prophets, now we can look back and say, oh, we're the last generation of exiles in Babylon. Okay, we're the last generation of exile. And all the prophecies of ancient Babylon are coming on the modern system of Babylon. And we know that, okay? And just as our brothers and our fathers from the past, most people will not listen to the prophets. You know why? The prophets ain't paying you. The prophets ain't giving you no money. Babylon give you money. They got their own currency. They give you money. Okay? They got it. And that's really what it comes down to for most people, most Hebrews. Anyway, let's start. Daniel chapter 1. Daniel chapter 1. Let's look at Daniel and how he handled himself in Babylon as our example of how we handle ourselves in Babylon. Okay? In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Daniel chapter 1, verse 1, in the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and besieged it. And Yahweh gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of Yahweh, which he carried into the land of Shinar, to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. So Nebuchadnezzar had a God. It wasn't Yah. And the Most High used this Babylonian king that didn't know the true God to spank the Israelites and take them captives. He used this Babylonian king that didn't know the true God to spank his Israelite people and take them captives. Wait a minute. Could it be that the kings and the leaders and the world powers of modern Babylon are being used to teach us a lesson? Let's keep going. Verse 3. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel and of the king's seed and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored and skillful in all wisdom and cunning and knowledge and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, whom they might teach the learning and tongue of the Chaldeans. Now, this is why, one of the reasons why I believe that Nebuchadnezzar, of the four powers that Zechariah says scatter Israel and Judah, that Nebuchadnezzar was the top. In modern Babylon, they will exalt the Hebrews that entertain them. We talked about this lots of times. So if you could run fast, if you could jump high, if your hands are fast and you could box, or you can sing and play music or play horns or play instruments or act, they will bring you forth because you entertain the masses, right? But notice what Nebuchadnezzar did. He said, children in whom was no blemish, well favored in wisdom and cunning and knowledge, understanding science, and had ability to stand in the king's palace. In other words, instead of sisters having to sneak into NASA because their mathematical abilities was so high that the children of Yafet didn't want that shown, instead of going to Egypt and blowing off the noses of the ancient pharaohs so you wouldn't know they was black like Greece did, instead of trying to destroy us from being engineers and scientists and using the natural Yah-given abilities we have for your kingdom, you just want to use us for entertainment purposes. Think about that. Nebuchadnezzar's plan was to use the talents of Israelites, Hebrew Israelites, all their talents, to build up his kingdom. That was smart. That was intelligent. Versus we create the light bulb, but no, John Edison did. No, we create the cotton gin. Oh no, Eli Whitney did that. We built the White House, but no, George Washington built it. We built the railroads and the ships, but no, those other people built it. Instead of using the talents that we have, versus you finding the greatest mathematician. They did a movie. They had, what's sister name? You remember they had the sister that was the mathematical genius, and they didn't even want her on the grounds of NASA. But eventually she was so sharp, she was writing formulas and planning things about moon launches they didn't even understand yet and couldn't believe it came from a black woman. She had to fight to be able to help them. Yeah, Henson played the role, right? She had to fight in order to be able to help them. Hidden Figures, that's right. But that's what I'm saying is that's an example. There was another one where there was a rapper. Y'all could tell me he played the role of this guy that was a brother. True story. He wanted to go to medical school. He lost all his money when the bank failed that had his money in 1929. And he spent his whole career working in hospitals, smarter than all the doctors. Like Mos Def played the role. Smarter than all the doctors. Smarter than all the doctors. And they wouldn't let him go through the regular school system so he could help save lives. Nope. He was like the janitor, but he knew how to operate more than the doctors did. He knew what to do. And he had to fight. And doctors had to fight for him so that he can use the gifts Yah gave him to help them. That's right. Mos Def played it. That's right. Something the Lord made. Mos Def played the role. Right? But that was a true story. That was a true story. At Johns Hopkins, one of the most powerful medical facilities on planet Earth, Johns Hopkins. And this man was teaching doctors at Johns Hopkins how to handle business in the operating room. And because he was a Hebrew, he had to fight even to help them. Versus Nebuchadnezzar said, let's take these brothers, let's take their talents, and let's build up Babylon with it. That's intelligence. Versus what are we seeing now? Arrogance. That's what we're seeing. Arrogance. And look, even when we talk about something the Lord made, what they use? They use the rapper to teach you about a Hebrew. Why? Because you listen, you'll read, you'll watch it if the rapper's in it. You see where we at, right? You see where we are. So let's take this a step further. What would you think is going to happen when you as the children of Japhet with white Jesus, you are blessed. These people you took into your kingdom as slaves actually have talents and abilities to build up your kingdom, and you refuse to use them. You want to steal from them and then claim you discovered it. What's going to happen to your kingdom? I mean, look what happened to Babylon's kingdom. Is yours going to fare any better? Bible says no. Bible says no. Prophecy, as we say, what? Prophecy is against you. Modern Babylon. Prophecy is against you. Brethren's got to be fighting with you to help you. To help you. Isn't that amazing? So you got mathematicians, surgeons, scientists that could help move this thing forward, right? Help your whole civilization. And you enslave them and you whip them and you rape them. And they still, the talent they have, they want to use it. And they got to fight with you to use the talent to help you. It's amazing, man. It's amazing. It really is. It's amazing. And the only ones you let come forth in your Babylon is the ones that entertain you. Right, Dr. Sebi? I mean, there's some brilliant people out here that are Hebrews, that the Most High has given gifts to, that could bless mankind. But you stop them because you didn't discover it. I was looking at a documentary and somebody was trying to give the ancient Mesopotamians credit for inventing a 7-day week. I was like, what? What? See? And we know Indians was already in tribes, organized tribes, in teepees, called in their tents, lived all over the land, had thriving animals over here. They would only kill what they needed to live. They would kill a buffalo and they would use every piece of that buffalo for oil, for coats and skins, and for food. They knew how to store it and preserve it so they would last a whole winter. But other people discovered the land. You see, what could we have learned from those Hebrews? Matter of fact, I could give you 1,000 stories. I read another story there was a brother in Texas. This was back in slavery. And the master used him to train the horses. And another Caucasian man came and said, what you using that black man to touch your horses for? And he said, you don't know? He said, this man's an expert in how to handle horses. They get it from when we had him when they was in Africa. He already knew. He was a Hebrew and he knew how to handle horses. I had an uncle, my Uncle Yuli. Uncle Yuli died. He was dying of cirrhosis of the liver where he got hit by a car, but he was my favorite uncle. He used to always make me laugh. But Uncle Yuli couldn't read, couldn't write, spent most of his time in jail. But he was expert with horses. Nobody taught him. The police used to have him train the horses. Because back in the day, a lot of police would be on horses more than cars even. And so they would have him help them train the horses. Never gave him any credit or anything. He just naturally had a gift with horses. And it got to the point he would steal the horses. They would come to him and he would steal them and ride with them until they caught him. So he had a gift. Why? Because it was in his blood. It was in his system. It was in his DNA from where he came from. Though he didn't know where he came from. You understand? Gift with horses, man. Horses will respond to him. All right? See? So, again, when you see Nebuchadnezzar say, well, listen, we want the ones that know the science and know the math. We want the ones that have the wisdom. We're going to bring them. We're going to put our names on them, and they're going to teach us more than we know now. That's intelligence. That shows you why later on we'll find out Babylon was the gold. Rome was iron, base metal. Babylon was the gold, the softest and most precious of all of the four metals we're going to see in James chapter 2. The least valuable and the hardest one is Rome. Okay, the most ruthless one. Okay, so you're already this is 4 verses and you're already seeing a vast difference. A lot of similarities now, but a vast difference between. See, there's just gifts that the Most High has given us. It's in our blood, brethren. It comes all the way back from the land. They found out the Bible, or not the Bible, they found out the historians said that when they took Judah from the west coast of Africa. They had artisans, they had poets, they had writers, mathematicians, painters, people that could handle iron. They all came as exiles into West Africa. Okay. And you can't hide those gifts. And that's why I say, brethren, listen, seriously though, we have been called forth in these last days as awakened Hebrews, and it is predestined for us to receive Father's Spirit. Not everybody will, but Father has called us forth as his chosen people for the purpose of receiving his Spirit. It is he that gives us all of these gifts. The gifts are made manifest from thousands of years ago. From us, we had this, our fathers had this, and he brings this forth in us. And you know what? It's all good. It doesn't matter whether the world acknowledges it or not. That's irrelevant. What is most important is that we understand knowledge of self. Elijah Muhammad, I'm not a Muslim, don't believe in it. But he said it, and Malcolm X said it. Knowledge of who you are is extremely important. Daniel had a knowledge of self. Daniel had a knowledge of self. Daniel knew who he was. He knew what his real name was. He knew where he came from. We're just discovering who we are. And all of this time, part of the reason they can subject us is because we didn't know who we are. You understand? That's right. Shadrach, and a bad Negro. We can ready to see it right now. Daniel chapter 1, beginning at verse 5. Daniel chapter 1, let's read verse 5, 6, and 7. Daniel chapter 1, verse 5, 6, and 7. The king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. So they were going to go through basically graduate school. See, you feeling that? They were going to go to graduate school in Babylon to learn the culture, the tongue, the learning of the Babylonians, and then be able to bring their gifts into Babylon. That's like if we captured people from, I don't know, let's say we captured people from, let's say the United States captured scientists from Germany. And let's say they captured these scientists from Germany, and these scientists from Germany had notes and knowledge that they learned from experimenting on humans. And they brought these German-speaking scientists to the United States to teach you people in the United States, the scientists, what they learned. Let's say that happened. I'm just saying. And then you'd be able to cure diseases. You'd be able to cure all these things because these people that were not from your country, but they didn't speak English, but they came from another country. And so you gave them some time to learn your language and your culture. And they came over here and they brought all of these notes with them from their language and their culture. And they were able to help you because you trusted them because they're your cousins. Does that, you could see that might be able to happen, right? Because you they like your cousins. You trust them. Huh? And so they brought Daniel and the brothers over here. And they said, listen here, we want them to learn our language, our customs, our culture, and we want them to teach us what they knew from when they came over here. All of these skills they brought with them from Judah. Bring it. Bring it to Babylon. Teach us how to make, like an atomic bomb. Teach us how to inject people and then cure polio. Teach us that things. I mean, it's possible, isn't it? I'm not, I'm just saying it's possible. All right, verse 6. Now among these were the children of Judah, Daniel, or Danayah, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. Mishael is kind of like Michael, just to let you know. Unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names. For he gave unto Daniel the name Belteshazzar, and unto Hananiah Shadrach, and unto Mishael Meshach, and to Azariah a bad Negro. So you three, you're all right, but this one here, this is a bad Negro, a Abednego. Shadrach, Meshach, and a bad Negro. Gave him the Babylonian names. Gave him the Babylonian names and changed their Hebrew names. Now, they could change their Hebrew names, but Daniel and his boys, they knew what their real names was, right? They knew what their real names was. You can call me whatever you want, but he knew what his real name was. He knew what his family was. He knew where he came from. And Daniel and his friends, they also knew why they was there. So did Ezekiel. That's what they had in common. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, they all knew why we are here in exile. They knew, right? They knew. Okay? All right. Verse 8. Daniel understanding who he was. He had a knowledge of self, a knowledge of his history, a knowledge of who his God was. Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. Notice what it says. But Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not defile himself with the portion of the king's meat, nor with the wine which he drank. Therefore, he requested of the prince of the eunuchs that he might not defile himself. I used to teach that Daniel became a vegetarian because that's what the Most High gave to Israel. But I have to admit, and I have admitted this before, that is not true. Israelites ate meat. What you think Deuteronomy 14 is all about? Or Leviticus 11? It's showing you the meat he told us to eat. And then Leviticus also goes further and tells you, don't eat the blood. Right? He tells us, don't eat the blood. And of course, they had vegetation. The original diet was fruit. And they had vegetables. They had a diet. They had unleavened bread. And they had bread that wasn't defiled with Monsanto. So Daniel understanding what to eat and how to prepare what to eat. He did not trust that Babylon understand what he knew. So any food from Babylon, it might have had Monsanto in the grains. They might have homogenized that milk and put something in there, hormones. They might have fed the cows grains and stuff and corn and stuff that they don't naturally eat to get them fat. They might have injected the chicken with some steroids so they would grow in 3 or 4 months, would take them a year. So Daniel said, listen, man, I can't eat this stuff. I can't eat this stuff. Because, brethren, we're in Babylon. And we have to try to keep our minds and our bodies. It's not just for purity's sake, although, yeah, obviously. But I mean, we have to be sharp, right? I mean, we have to try to keep ourselves as tight as we can because we're in Babylon. I know the Most High can protect us. He can keep us. But we want to try our best to learn the body so that we can take care of the body. And the Most High gives us what to eat. He tells us to stay away from blood. We know in our knowledge today that organic grass-fed meat is better than the alternative. Now, I understand it's definitely expensive, much more expensive. But when I'm in the supermarket, I have to weigh in my mind. I do like this. What would Daniel eat? I do say that. What would Daniel eat? If Daniel was shopping in Publix with me right now, what would he stay away from and what would he eat? That's how I have to do it. And I'll be like, okay, Daniel would eat. And so, okay, I want a steak, but I want a grass-fed organic steak. And I look at the steak and it'd be like 20 something dollars for a pound. I'd be like, okay, I can't do that. Or I got to get a thinner cut. Then I said, okay, I'm looking at the chicken. It's got to be organic, grass-fed chicken. Okay, what they got? I got to look and see what they got. And I got to get what I can afford. Then I'm looking at the eggs. I want the organic, cage-free, grass-fed eggs or grain-fed chickens. Okay, we could do that. We go there. And there always is an alternative. They keep it right next to each other. You got the regular meat that they chop and they say USDA, but then you got the one that's organic and raised, grass-fed, raised right. And you got to look and say, damn. And one is like $10 and the other one's like $20. Right? And so that's a decision we have to make all the time. You know, we have to make those decisions. Then I go to the vegetables. And I'm looking for the organic salad. They got salad that's not organic. I'm trying to find the organic one. My wife asked me to get kale. All right, I see regular kale. Like, yeah, it's got to be healthy, right? But then there's organic kale right next to it. And I'll be like, probably didn't wash the organic kale in doo-doo juice, you know? So you make decisions based on what you can afford, what's the best for you. You try to do the best you can. You understand? Try to do the best you can with, the knowledge we have. Trying our best. And I look at all of these YouTube videos. I look at Dr. Bird, and I'm looking at this other Caucasian woman. I forgot her name. I look at all these people that do the keto. I look at brothers that do this, and I try to take this information and compare it to the Bible and say, okay, what's the best way for me to go? And it took me years for myself. It took me a long time between me being stubborn. I admit it. And I'm still stubborn and stiff-necked. Me being stubborn and stiff-necked, and then me trying to be healthy. And it took me years to just get to where I'm at now. And I still got a ways to go, but to get me to say, okay, I shouldn't be eating all this sugar. I know they're putting sugar in everything. I shouldn't be eating all this sugar. It took me a long time. Okay. Took a long time. I mean, all kinds of stuff, man. And so, I was like, and then I went from all fruits, all raw fruits and vegetables, to all meat, carnivore. I did all of it, trying to find the balance between what's healthy, what I like, what's good, and it's an ongoing process, but it's still a process. You understand? But you have to think about these things and and you got to decide, I mean, it took me most of my life to decide, okay, I'm going to leave chocolate chip cookies and Oreos alone. It took me most of my life to get to that point. I ain't even lying. Most of my 62 years, I'd say a good 55, 50 years to get to that point. Okay. Just say, okay, I'm going to leave Oreos alone. I'm going to leave, what's the Chips Ahoy? I'm going to leave Fig Newtons alone. All right, I'm going to stay away from the cakes and the Little Debbies. It took me a long time of prayer and fighting and all of that. Now, I haven't touched the Praise the Most High in a long time. I mean, I probably haven't had those things, about 7 years. I'd say about 7 years. Okay, maybe about 7, 8 years, something like that. It took a while, though. It didn't just happen, brethren. Lots of fight. And then the knowledge to understand, it was the sugar. And it's not just the sugar. For me, it wasn't just the sugar in those obvious things. It was sugar in other things, the other foods that I didn't even know had sugar in it. Like I said, I didn't know they had sugar in French fries. I was like, dang, they got sugar in French fries? I didn't know white bread had sugar. I didn't know white bread had sugar. I know that sounds crazy. It's like, white bread got sugar in it? I love white bread. And then, of course, there was the peanut butter and jelly, PB&J. I mean, shoot. And then last year, I couldn't even eat a daggone banana. Most High's also spanking me. My stomach doubling over in pain. I can't even eat this fruit now. I was like, Dad. And so right now, I'm learning to enjoy other foods, learning to eat more fats or high quality fats and protein. And I'm still learning, but it's a battle. And, Daniel helped me because Daniel had made that decision coming from the motherland of the Hebrew, right? Coming from the motherland of the Hebrew, he made that decision and decided I'm coming out of place that I know how to eat and I know how to drink. And I'm not going to drink and eat like these people. Okay? I'm not going to eat and drink like these people. But yeah, man, oh man. Like, and then there's juices. Forget it, man. Orange juice. I like the fresh, like I squeezed orange juice. I figured that was more healthy, but it's still full of sugar. And in fact, I had to be careful. So now I'm having like celery juice. And even with that, I'm not trying to, it's healthy, but I'm trying my best to. I'm scared of that blending, that juicing now, because I don't want to put nothing in there that's going to mess me up, with some sugar. So I did use the celery. Okay. And I ain't going to front though. I still like me a little wine. I ain't going to front. I still like my wine, man. My wife calls me a little wino. I said, all right, I just be a Hebrew wino, but I like me a little wine. So wine makes a man happy. That's what the Bible says. So me and my wife, every time I have some wine, she said, oh, you getting happy. I take the celery juice and I chop up a little ginger. Very simple, celery juice and ginger. Sometimes I'll throw some cucumber in there with some water, blend it up and squeeze out the juice and drink that, man. Yeah, I don't like the grill. I'll be honest. I'm more of I like to mix wines. So I'll take the bitter red ones and mix it with a little sweet one, little Manischewitz. So I'll take the bitter one with some Cabernet Sauvignon or some Merlot, and then I'll throw a little bit of Manischewitz in this a little bit. And then I'll usually put in it actually some celery juice or some apple cider vinegar. And it kind of neutralizes the negative effects on me anyway. And so I'll put some celery juice in there or some apple cider vinegar and have my little juice, man. Have my little Hebrew juice. Okay. Yeah, see, everybody can relate to that. Yeah, I love the celery juice is very good. And usually when I don't feel like blending, I'll just throw some apple cider vinegar either in some water or some wine, and I'll drink it like that. But yeah, I'll put celery, ginger, cucumber. I know I don't feel like mixing with the lemon, so I just throw some water in there, and then I have one of them meshes thing, and I squeeze out the juice from the pulp, and then I'll put that in a big glass and have that. Last night, I think I had I must have had a good 20 ounces of celery juice last night. Just celery juice. With ice, man. It was really good. Really was. Helped my stomach a lot. Okay. But Daniel, we get that from his example, right? So he's in Babylon and he said, I'm not going to do this. I'm not eating this stuff. So the only thing that he could eat that wasn't unclean at that time was the vegetables. Now, later on in Daniel, he talks about eating flesh, which means that he had enough stature, he had enough juice, no pun intended, that he could tell them how to make the meat the way the Hebrew eats it. That's later on. But at this stage, he's a young captive in Babylon, so he decided, I can't eat none of this stuff. Please pass the vegetables, pass the rice. That's all I can have. Okay, so let's go with that. In Daniel chapter 1. Now, Daniel chapter 1, verse 9. Oh, by the way, I want you to notice Daniel and his 3 buddies were under the care of eunuchs, under the care of the master of the eunuchs. So what do you think that means? Daniel wasn't just under the care of, the political leaders. He was under the care of the master of the eunuchs. What does that tell you? And you never hear of Daniel getting married and having children in Babylon. Didn't happen to all the Hebrews, but it was a prophecy about the children of Judah that they were being told that your sons are going to be eunuchs in the court of Babylon. And here they are, eunuchs. So they were called to help Babylon, but they weren't going to be any offspring. Not from them. Okay. Daniel chapter 1. Let's go down to verse 9. Let's read verse 9 and 10. Now, the Most High had brought Daniel into favor and tender love with the prince of the eunuchs. And the prince of the eunuchs said unto Daniel, I fear my lord the king, who hath appointed your meat and your drink. Why should he see your faces worse liking than the children which are of your sort? Then shall you make me to endanger my head to the king. So yeah, he said, Daniel, I hear you. I like you, man. I think you're a cool dude. I think we're gonna get along just fine. But my head, the king will cut my head off if I bring you before him and you all haggard looking and skinny and ain't got no nourishment. He gonna cut my head off. So Daniel says, all right, let's test it out. Daniel chapter 1, verse 11. Then Daniel said to Melzar, whom the prince of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, prove thy servants. I beseech thee 10 days. They had 3 years. They could try 10 days and see what happens. And let them give us pulse to eat and water to drink. Then let our countenances be looked upon before thee, and the countenances of the children that eat of the portion of the king's meat. And as thou seest, deal with thy servants. So then he said, let's prove it. Let's test it. Let's do a test. Give us 10 days of what we asking you to eat, and then compare us to the people that's eating what you feeding them. And let's see what happens. You see, brethren, it's not just the food. People do focus. Well, you see, Daniel, the vegetarian diet is superior. I used to say that. But it's more than that. It really is. What is it? Obedience to the Father is superior. That's what it comes down to. See, the food is important. But obedience to the Father and the determination of Daniel not to defile himself was to bring glory to Yah, right? He's not going to defile himself. He's not going to dishonor his God by just eating anything. Okay? So that was the test. And that's what the Most High will bless. When we seek to glorify the Father, he will bless us in whatever we do because it glorifies him when we seek to glorify the Father. Yeah, he trusted in Yah. Okay, so let's take a look in Daniel chapter 1. In verse 14, so he consented to them in this matter and proved them 10 days. And at the end of 10 days, their countenances appeared fairer and fatter in flesh than all the children which did eat the portion of the king's meat. Then Melzar took away the portion of their meat and the wine that they should drink and gave them pulse. He made everybody eat that because this worked for Daniel and them. Let's give it to everybody. Verse 17, as for these 4 children, the Most High gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom. And Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. See, so now the Father is blessing him because why? Daniel's purpose, which we will see as we read Daniel, was to be a prophet of the Israelites in Babylon. So Daniel had a calling from the Father. Therefore, the Most High gave him, notice it said, he gave him knowledge and understanding in visions and dreams. Understand something. This wasn't because their IQ was simply higher than the Babylonian IQ. It's because their God is the only true God. And they were called by him for a purpose in Babylon. Well, brethren, let's bring it home. Why are you awakened? Why are you awakened? Because you've been awakened for a reason. You've been called for a purpose in Babylon. Father's going to bless you in your purpose in Babylon. You've been awakened. Now, see, if we were to look at this as a carnal matter, we just say, well, Daniel was blessed with high IQ. He was blessed with certain chromosomes in his brain. He was blessed with a certain blood type that caused him to become very much more intelligent. It would just so happen the way he was blessed and how he did it. No. Father Yah removes kings and sets up kings. Father Yah calls prophets and sets up prophets. Father Yah can call his chosen ones from the rocks or from the dust. And we've seen it both in the word. He's calling Daniel with his buddies. He's calling them for a purpose in Babylon. They were from the beginning standing firm on the Father. That's right. He can call his people from any place. So the fact that you are being awakened and I'm being awakened right now, we've been called for a purpose. All of us have been called for a purpose. And so our number one priority, no matter what we do, brethren, is to glorify the Father. You're single, you want to get married? How will your marriage glorify your Heavenly Father? There's no sin against enjoying a being that's going to be one with you. But you want to make sure that if you do that, it's Father's choice It's Father's choice. Okay? And that you're glorifying him in it. You can have both. You can be happy. You can get everything you want. And you can glorify the Father, but you have to make it Father's choice. Like I had a friend, he's been married. I mentioned him before. He's been married 6 times. And if you took all his wives and lined them up next to each other, they could pass for sisters. And yet he keeps saying, the Lord chose this one for me. He keeps saying, the Lord chose this one for me. And he still can't see that all 6, he chose them. Married, divorced, married, divorced, married, divorced, married, divorced. But he can't see you're choosing them, and you keep saying, the Most High, the Lord chose this one for me. Really? Why do they all look alike? Just so happened. And why do you act the same way with each one? You know, what they say, was it? You keep doing the same thing, and you're expecting a different result. No, brethren, we want to really glorify the Father. And more than likely, it won't be something we would choose. More than likely, it won't be something we would choose. Because if it was, it'd be the same result, right? Right. So we need the Father to choose. And the thing is, will we trust the Father that we'll be happy, that we'll be enjoying ourselves, that we'll get what's best for us and what we want if we let him choose? That's the test. That's the test. And here we are, brethren. I'm going to tell you right now, we're called forth to do that, to let the Father choose, to let the Father where we're going to live, who we're going to be with, if anybody, what we're going to do as work. He will choose all of that. He will guide us in all of that and choose. And it may not be what we chose for ourselves. Honestly, I always admired 2 men growing up watching TV on black and white TV before we had color television. 2 men I admired. One was Jack LaLanne, and the other one was Perry Mason. So I wanted to be a fit lawyer. I wanted to be a lawyer that was into fitness. I'm into fitness, but I'm not a lawyer. And the Most High blocked that. Now, he blocked it for his glory. I wanted, he put me in other situations. Okay, fine. Now I've learned, okay, he's got me, he's taking care of me. I'm good. And he is the one chose everything I'm doing. Okay? He's the one chose everything I'm doing. Fine. Okay, again, took me a while to come to that point. Took me a while to come to that point. Right? But now that I have, I understand. Praise the Most High. And so all of us, you and me, were being called to glorify our Father. And in doing that, what we do is we let him choose for us what's best for us. Just like as parents, you and I, as parents, what do? We choose for our children what we believe is best for our children. Don't we? Why? Because we love our children and we want what's best for our children. Well, Heavenly Father is our Father, and he wants what's best for us. If you ask your child, what do you want to eat today? It would be candy or cake or cookies or pizza. You want that and soda every day, right? But you know very well you cannot give them that every day because you would kill your own child. Even though your child may not understand, that's what you're doing. You're trying to help them, right? But we also think we know, and our Heavenly Father knows more than us. But we have to allow him to choose what's best for us and to understand that, yes, it is best for us. Yes, that's right. If you ask them and you let your kids make the menu, you'll be killing your kids. Well, brethren, it's the same thing. If we decide to make the menu, Most High would allow us to be killing ourselves. Daniel chapter 1, verse 18. Now at the end of the days that the king had said he should bring them in, then the prince of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar. And the king communed with them. And among them all was found none like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. Therefore stood they before the king. And in all matters of wisdom and understanding that the king inquired of them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and astrologers that were in all his realm. And Daniel continued even unto the first year of the king Cyrus. See, it's the blessing of Yah. It's like with Esther. They had a thing where the king lost his wife or put her away, Vashti, and he needed a new wife. So they said, look, take the finest sisters. I'm putting it in the modern vernacular. Take the finest sisters in your kingdom, and we'll bring them all to Shushan, and you have sex with each one. And the one that you decide to call by name, that's going to be your new wife. King said, oh, okay, let's do that. That sounds good. So they went and got all the sisters, and they brought Esther among them. And all of a sudden, King Mind was, Esther, Esther. He was calling that sister's name, and she became queen. Now, why was that? Well, Esther was all that more than the other ones? No, it's because the Most High blessed Esther. He blessed Esther. And Esther was chosen because Father had decided this was going to be in the kingdom for such a time as this. And here's Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They were brought into the kingdom for such a time as this. That's right, like Joseph. And guess what? Like you. Brought into the kingdom for such a time as this. Isn't that what her uncle said? Said, listen, who said you were, who is to know that you were brought into the kingdom, Esther, for such a time as this? Daniel said to his brothers, you guys meant evil, but the Most High meant it for good. Look what happened. Here we are preserved. Okay? For such a time as this, Daniel was brought forth with Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And beginning in chapter 2, we're going to start to see, praise the Most High, what they were brought forth for. Praise the Most High. All right. Well, Daniel chapter 1 in the books, brethren. We're going to, as we normally do, we're going to take our time. We're not going to rush through this. We're going to take our time and study Daniel. And by the grace of the Father, be prepared to meet Messiah and the Father. As a result of studying this, among other things, please continue to read your Bible. Read your Bible. Pray to your Father. Ask him for the wisdom of his Spirit, who is the origin of everything that is wise. And he will guide you in his word and guide you in the way you should go. And have you prepared to stand as Daniel and his friends were prepared to stand. Praise the Most High. May the Most High bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may he lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Shalom, family.